friends, it's Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing my June wrap-up. I'm also going to be tacking on there the 2 books that I read in May because I really did not read anything in May. It was very sad. It was a sad month for me. Like, not emotionally, just for reading. So the first book that I read in May was Her Royal Highness, and this is by Rachel Hawkins, and I read this in like a single sitting. It's very quick, just under 300 pages. This is about a girl from Texas who decides to transfer to a boarding school in Scotland and finds that her roommate is none other than the Princess of Scotland herself. It's a little bit of like an enemies to lovers trope, so they end up hating each other, but they do both end up forming a relationship, and it's just kind of her struggle as an American dating the Princess of Scotland and what that entails and things. Positives of this book, I thought that all of the tropes were like all of my favorite things. I love books set in boarding schools. I liked that we had like the royalty aspect of that. I will say that personally for me, I thought that it was a cute and fluffy romance, but I do wish that it was a little bit longer. I would have loved to have seen some of the struggles dating royalty, and I would have loved to have seen some of the struggles, like more angst, I guess, before they ended up getting together and stuff. But I will say that it was a really cute, enjoyable read, so if you're looking for something kind of light and fluffy, you might want to check this out. The next book that I read was The Princess and the Fangirl, and this is by Ashley Poston. This is kind of like a companion novel to Geekerella. Geekerella is the very first in Ashley Poston's kind of fairy tale fandom spin-off series. All of her books are based off of fairy tales, and they take place in the modern age, and they're retellings, but like centering around fandoms. And so this particular one is based off of The Prince and the Pauper. It's about 2 girls who meet. One is an actress in a movie that she does not want to play in, and the other is a fan trying to kind of save her job, even though the actress does not want her job saved because she is super over this movie franchise, and they decide to swap places. So I thought that this book was really cute and very, again, light and fluffy. It's a pretty fast read, actually. It's also pretty short, I think, 310. I would say that I think I might pick up Geekerella because I've heard that that is the best book in the series, and I would say that while this was cute, it wasn't like it's not gonna like make my top favorite books of the year or anything. It was just kind of a cute read. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into all of the books that I read for the month of June. So, oh, really quick. So currently I am getting my master's in library science, and one of the classes that I'm in is just all about picture books, and so we're required to read 30 picture books a week, and so far I have read around 160 picture books just in the month of June. And so I just wanted to show you 3 picture books that really stood out to me. I don't know if I'm not counting any of this for my reading goal, but I just think it's interesting. I love picture books, and I've always loved picture books. The first one I want to talk about is Hello Lighthouse, and this was actually the 2019 Caldecott winner, and this is by Sophie Blackhall, and it's so good. It's so beautiful. Basically, it's just about this little lighthouse and the caretaker of the lighthouse and his family. It's very simple. It has a lot of repetition in it so that if you're reading it for a story time, the kids can kind of join in, which is always really, really fun and boosts participation and engagement and everything. The illustrations are some of the most beautiful illustrations I've ever seen in my entire life. So I had to buy it. I actually borrowed this book from the library, but I had to go out and buy my own copy because I needed it in my life. Okay, next I have got Thank You, Omu, and this was the Caldecott Honor book for, I want to say 2019, but I'm actually not totally sure on that one. But it's such a beautiful story. The story is just of this grandmother who is cooking stew, and everybody around the block smells her stew and comes to her door and asks for a little bit, and she gives every single person a bowl until there's nothing left for herself herself. But at the very end, when she gets another knock, all of them have come back with food for her, and it becomes this giant feast and party, which is just so beautiful. Like, the illustrations are gorgeous. Everything about this was beautiful. The message was gorgeous. This is one of my favorite books ever, and I've actually already read it several times. It's just so cute. And then the last picture book that I'd like to share today is Julian is a Mermaid, and this is by Jessica Love, and it's so beautiful. It's about a little boy who goes with his abuela to the pool, and while he's at the pool, he decides that he wants to become a mermaid. And so when they go home, he pretends to be a mermaid, and the illustrations are gorgeous because you see him literally transforming into a mermaid. The illustrations are ridiculously gorgeous, and the message in it is just heartbreakingly beautiful. I loved it so much. This is, I think, my favorite picture book that I've read to date. So I read 4 graphic novels for the month of June. The first one that I read was Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and this is by Mariko Takami, and it's illustrated by Rosemary Valero O'Connell. The illustrations are gorgeous because it's this beautiful black and white with a pop of this bubblegum pink, which I've never seen before. It's so beautiful. So this is about a girl named Freddie, and Freddie is in a very toxic relationship with her girlfriend Laura Dean, who keeps using her and breaking up with her. Freddie doesn't like who she is when she is with Laura Dean, but she is completely in love with her. The story is really sad because you see this gorgeous girl who's being taken advantage like every single time by Laura Dean, and you kind of want to shake her and say, like, why are you with Laura Dean? I mean, it was also really relatable because I feel like a lot of the times when we are in love, we're kind of blind to maybe some things in the relationship that aren't healthy because we love the person so much. So it was like just really great to read, and I really loved it a lot, but it was just very sad to read as well. So I recommend it if you love graphic novels. You're gonna love the art style, and the story was really good. It was really sad, but I thought it was well done. It was handled really well. The next 2 are graphic novels that I read for one of my classes, and it was young adult course materials. The first one is This One Summer, and this is by Jillian Takami and Mariko Takami. They're cousins, and this was also the Caldecott Honor book. I have seen a couple different reviews on this, and like one of the main complaints is that a lot of people say that there isn't like a solid plot and a solid resolution. I would say that I think that there was a plot in this, but I think more than a plot, it's more of like a portrait of what it's like to be a preteen girl growing up in America. So it's about a girl named Rose, and Rose and her family always stay up in the same cabin every single year for summer. And this summer is a little bit different because this summer she finally notices her parents are fighting and things seem really tense at the house, and she notices boys, and she's trying to figure out where she fits in with people. It's really her struggles kind of growing up, and I will say that Rose is a very unlikable character at times because you kind of see her making mistakes while she's growing up. But if you would like kind of an accurate portrayal of what it's like to be a preteen, I think you're gonna like this. It's again kind of a more sad, like melancholy plot. It's not something that I would probably gravitate to myself, but I found it to be very like interesting, and I thought that the story was really well done. The next one is another book for that young adult materials course, and it was Speak, but this is the graphic novel version of Speak. And Speak is written by Lori Halse Anderson, and the illustrator is Emily Carroll, who also wrote and illustrated Through the Woods, which is a great graphic novel. So this is about a girl, and she is the victim of rape and assault, and the entire book she is struggling to speak out about what happened. And because she has not told anybody what happened that night, she's kind of shut down and she's stopped speaking in general. It was very sad, but very well done, and I enjoyed the illustrations a lot. And then the last graphic novel I think is my favorite hands down, and it was Heartstopper, and this is by Alice Oseman. How I would describe this is like a Hufflepuff love story. It's so cute. It's about 2 boys. They go to the same school together, they become best friends, and then they kind of fall in love with each other, and it's just so simple, so beautiful. I loved it so much. It's very devoid of like a lot of angst and stuff. And I actually really found that refreshing. It was so nice to just see a relationship fall into place and work so beautifully. It just made my heart sing. This is like one of my favorite books of the year. It was so beautiful. I highly recommend this book to everybody. If you're looking for a cute love story, please pick this up. It was just adorable in every single regard. I loved Alice Oseman's style. I do wish that the illustrations were in color, but that's okay. Definitely pick this book up. You won't regret it. Next are the books that I read for the Buzzword Readathon. This is hosted by Books with Lala, and I've always wanted to participate. I did participate and I did vlog it. I don't know if the vlog will ever go up, but here's to hoping it will, even though it's kind of late. So the buzzword for this round was the word you. So you could read any book that you wanted with the word you in the title. The first one that I read was Love Looks Pretty on You, and this is by Lang Leave. I really enjoyed this, but I will say that this was not my favorite Lang Leave poetry collection. So if I was gonna recommend poetry, I would 100% recommend Lang Leave. She's actually my favorite modern poet. I find that she has like a very whimsical and childlike approach to poetry. She does rhyme, which I find really endearing. I don't like it on anybody else, but it really works well for her style. I absolutely love Lang Leave. I didn't connect to this work as much as I have connected to her previous works. I loved Love and Misadventure, and I loved Lullabies. So I think if you are new to her, I would pick up one of those books before this one. But if you have read Lang Leave, I would say that you're probably gonna like this because she is a really excellent poet. Next, I picked up Everything Leads to You, and this is by Nina LaCour. This particular book is about a girl named Emmy, and Emmy works for a film production company as the film production set designer. She has just graduated high school, and she is currently looking for furniture for one of her film sets when she stumbles upon an old letter from an old Hollywood actor. And the letter kind of sets her off into trying to figure out this old mystery. There is a female-female relationship in this, and it does take place in the summertime, so if you're interested in any of those elements, you'll probably really like this. I really enjoyed it, although I will say that I found the pacing was just kind of slow, so it did take me longer to get through this book than her other book, We Are Okay. And if you've never read a Nina LaCour book, I would actually highly recommend starting with We Are Okay because it was phenomenal and one of the best books that I've read so far this year. So I really, really loved it. And I do think that I preferred it to this book, but I thought that this book was really cute. The next book that I read for the Buzzword Readathon was actually a recommendation from my friend Kat, and I'm so glad that she recommended this book to me. This has become one of my favorite books of the entire year, maybe my favorite book of the entire year, and it is I'll Give You the Sun. I don't have the dust jacket. I lost the dust jacket, but it's I'll Give You the Sun. There we go, right side up. And this is by Jandy Nilsson, and it was so phenomenal, so beautiful, so perfect. I've never picked this book up before because the premise didn't sound interesting to me. So if the premise doesn't sound as interesting to you, I still would recommend picking up the book because the writing of this book was unreal. It was the most beautiful writing I've ever read, maybe in my entire life. It was just stunning. This is about two twins, Noah and Jude, who are best friends growing up, but then around their 13th year of life, I said that really weird, they kind of lose touch and stop talking. And so the reader is trying to figure out what happened to cause this. It's told in alternating perspectives, 13-year-old Noah, and then it goes 3 years in the future to 16-year-old Jude, and you're trying to figure out why they have stopped speaking. So Noah kind of thinks a little bit differently, and he is an artist. So when he is describing his emotions about things, he really describes it almost like magical realism. If his mother was really happy, he'll say that she is described as floating, or if his father is really sad, he'll say that it's raining in the house that day. And as the reader, you're kind of trying to figure out what's going on with Noah. Like, why is he describing things like this? Are these things actually happening? Is this magical realism or surrealism? And it's really just the way he's interpreting his feelings. It's one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life, and Jandy Nelson is just, she's become one of my favorite authors of all time. So I really recommend this. Specifically, if you love The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, if you enjoyed Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno, if you like magical realism in general, I think you're really gonna like this book. The next two books are books that I actually read for my young adults course material class again. So this is actually a reread for me. I read this for the first time when I was 24, and I remember like being completely shattered and just an emotional wreck at the end of this. If you have not picked up Looking for Alaska, I highly recommend that you do, just because it's such a beautiful, beautiful portrait of being a teenager. I thought it was just so well done and gorgeous. This particular book is about a boy named Miles, and Miles is looking for the great perhaps in life. He's kind of looking for purpose and an adventure, and so he decides to go to a boarding school in Alabama. And there he meets Alaska, and he meets the Colonel, who is his roommate, and he meets all of these really fun characters. He gets into lots of trouble, and he has all these different adventures, and it's sort of his perspective on life and trying to find meaning with his friends. It's beautiful, it's heartbreaking. There is a very big tragedy that happens in this book, and I really enjoyed reading this for a second time. I highly recommend this if you haven't read it, but it is a very sad book, so I think if you're like not in the right headspace, you might not enjoy this as much, because it is really sad. The next book I read was Scythe, and again, this is by Neil Shusterman, and I really enjoyed this book. So this is not the type of book that I would originally like pick up. It's a dystopian. I'm not really like a huge fan of dystopians right now, just because I read so many when I was younger that I've kind of dystopianed out. But it's a dystopian story, very violent at times because they're scythes, obviously. They kill people. I'm surprised that with all of those elements, I still think that this was one of the best books just ever. And I can't wait to get the next book, which is called, I think, Thunderhead. So I would recommend this, because if you even liked one of those elements, you're probably gonna just adore this book, because I don't like any of the elements and I adored this book. It was so gripping, so fast paced. I actually read the entire thing in a single sitting, and it's well over 400 pages, just so good. This takes place in our world, but it's far off into the future when we have basically conquered death. Even if you get hit by a car, they can revive you and make you as good as new. Nobody ever dies, and you can reset so that you look any age you want, basically. I think up until 21. In this world, to kind of like, I guess, keep track of the general population, there are these things called scythes, which are people who go out and they, you know, randomly select people to die and to be killed. There are two people who become apprentices to a scythe so that they can learn kind of the art of death and how to kill people and be merciful and all that other stuff. And it's really excellent. There's a lot of political intrigue. There's a lot of things that are kind of shady that are happening in the scythe world. There's a romance in here, a forbidden romance in here. It's just, it's really well done. It's so gripping. It's powerful. It's got a lot of really interesting messages. I would say that if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, you're probably really gonna like this book, because I love the Hunger Games and I loved this book so much. But I will also say that it's very dark. It's even darker than I was expecting going into it. So if you're not a fan of like graphic violence and things, like maybe you won't like this, but I actually really enjoyed it. So I don't know, I recommend it to everybody. I think it was one of the best books just ever. And then the last book that I read for this month was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and we stan. This was so great. Like one of the best romance novels I've ever read. I don't actually read a lot of adult romance novels, not like really for a particular reason, just I'm more of like a fantasy person personally, I don't know. But this has been getting so much hype and so much buzz that I had to pick it up. If you have not picked this up, I so recommend this. It's wonderful. This is the most funny book I've ever read in my whole entire life. I mean, I was just like hysterical, like not just like the kind of humor where you blow hot air out really fast and you're like, No, like the kind of humor where I was like cackling like loudly, uncontrollably, and people were staring at me. So this is about a girl named Olive, and Olive is the maid of honor at her twin sister's wedding. But that night, her twin sister, the groom, and every single party guest gets violently ill, and they are all poisoned by the seafood. However, Olive and Ethan both are completely fine. They both hate each other with a fiery, burning passion. However, since Ethan is the older brother to the groom, and Olive is the twin sister to the bride, they decide to take the all-inclusive Maui vacation and pretend to be a married couple so that they can get this free, awesome, once-in-a-lifetime vacation. So they kind of have to pretend that they are married, but they both hate each other, and it's wonderful. There's so much tension, there's so much angst, there's so much passion. It's really great, and there are so many funny situations as well. I really hope that this gets turned into a movie because I feel like this would translate so well as a movie. And there you have it, you guys. Those are all of the books that I read for the month of June. I had a pretty good reading month actually, so I'm hoping that it continues in July. If I were gonna recommend any books to you from this pile, I would recommend Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I would recommend The Unhoneymooners, Looking for Alaska, Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and 100,000,000% I would recommend I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. That was just such a standout favorite book. Oh, it was so good. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And until next time, book lovers, please keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will talk to you later. Bye.